It's been a tremendous privilege to be able to command British forces here, and the opportunity to work with a great team of people. It's about 1,000 people in the command, and we've made some real strides, I think, in the time that I've had the privilege of commanding. There's been some challenges. There's been some challenges from the Spanish with incursions. There's been some challenges in pushing through with our plans to make the command slightly more streamlined, more efficient and effective, but it's been in great fun as well.
You're facing a challenge at the moment in your last few weeks with Unite, as you know, with the head of demonstration here a few days ago, and they say that the locally entered staff are not being treated as well as the UK personnel that you have here. What is the MOD's position on that?
Well, the first thing I'd say is that Unite, of course, have that absolute right to have their meeting outside the naval base. That's what unions are for. We actually enjoy really good industrial relations with the MOD and the unions here in Gibraltar. Of course, we're not going to agree on everything, and there are going to be times when tensions get a bit high, and that's been the case in the last week or so. But I would say to you that we've enjoyed a really good, constructive meeting with them yesterday. We've put some of the issues on the table. I know that they're going to go back and discuss with their executive board some of the things we've been talking about, so it'd be inappropriate for me to go into that detail, and they'll obviously be wanting to talk to the Unite members, but we've never ever not wanted to engage with the local branch of Unite. There's been some misunderstandings in the last week, but I'm very pleased to say they're behind us. It's absolutely essential that we talk to each other, and I think that the role of the union is extremely important, and we're very keen to listen to what they have to say, and I know that they're equally keen to listen to us. So we're moving forward now, and I hope we can put last week's thing outside the naval base behind us.
They were rather upset, as you know, by the photographer that went out to take some pictures of the demonstration. Why did you do that?
Yeah, I'm very happy to talk about the photographer, and there is an RAF corporal who's simply doing his job. So I take responsibility for the photographer, and his role here is numerous. I mean, he takes photographs of people when they join for their identity cards and whatever it is. You know, some really sort of fairly low-level stuff, but he also has a responsibility for keeping a historical record of what happens in Gibraltar, be it the Polish ship that's sitting alongside here at the moment, or a submarine coming in, or the Queen's birthday parade. We record those historical moments, and if we're going to have a large group of people holding a meeting outside the naval base, I thought it was appropriate that we should record that. What I would say is, I think in hindsight we probably didn't give the photographer enough guidance, and he got a little bit too close, and up close and personal with some of the Unite members, and that clearly unsettled them. That was never the intention. We should have probably kept him a little bit further away, but there was certainly no more ulterior motive than just keeping a record of everything that goes on in Gibraltar. And I think, with the benefit of history, that's an important thing that we should do.
Unite says that it was a provocation.
Well, I've explained why we did it, and it certainly wasn't an act of provocation, and we chatted about that with the union in our meeting yesterday.
Okay, so moving on from that, you referred earlier to the incursions, which were the subject, in fact, of the first interview that we did a year and a half ago. Unfortunately, those Spanish incursions are still continuing. What's your view on how the last year and a half has developed? Has there been no progress at all on that front? Is it just as bad, or possibly even worse?
Well, I think since about April 12, the numbers of incursions they go up and down on a daily basis and on a weekly basis. But I think month on month we see just about the same level of incursions as we did when I arrived here. If anything, creeping up very slightly. It's very frustrating. I think it's inappropriate behaviour by Spanish state vessels. The thing that concerns me most of all is the risk of an accident on the water and somebody being hurt or worse, and that applies not just to Royal Navy personnel, but to the good work done by the Royal Gibraltar Police, the Gibraltar Defence Police, and of course the Spaniards themselves. This should not lead to anyone being hurt on the water. So my number one concern is that we need to do something to try and avoid them coming into our waters and there being an accident, and that's aside from the sovereignty issue where they're conducting unlawful incursions into our water. I would like to say that from my perspective, the Royal Navy Gibraltar Squadron and the guys up at Windmill Hill have done a fantastic job at keeping records, of logging, of if necessary interfering. And you saw the ribs during the survey ship coming in. That is pretty courageous work that they do to try and prevent these Spanish incursions.
You've had an increase in personnel to increase, I think, the number of patrols that you can carry out. Have you in fact done that? Are there more patrols, more regular patrols now than there were perhaps 6 or 7 months ago?
Yeah, and we have a pattern of patrols anyway, as you would expect when there aren't incursions, and of course when there are incursions, then we respond to all of those. It's not always the patrol boats. Sometimes it's the RIB that goes out. The RIB is great because it goes faster and it can be out there even more quickly than the patrol boats. So we respond to everything. What we found was that having just the 2 crews was wearing those guys down. And of course, I've got to take responsibility for their safety and making sure that I haven't got people operating out on the water who are just simply too tired to do their job properly. So we've got a bit more flexibility and redundancy by having an extra group of people here. So it's not a third crew as such. What it will do is take some of the administrative functions away from the 2 patrol boat crews. But if we need to put them to sea in a patrol boat, they have the qualifications to do that. And we're also taking a look at Windmill Hill and whether we can even further improve our ability to conduct surveillance. So perhaps some more equipment up there and maybe some more people. Because at the end of the day, it's also, at the end of the day, what we call a Mark I eyeball and looking out on the waters is sometimes just as effective as a very sophisticated radar.
We're also seeing, of course, more visits by Royal Navy ships, and they're exercising what is now being described as sovereignty patrols when they're here. That has been welcomed, as you know, by the Gibraltar government and by the Gibraltar people generally. Do you think, perhaps I'm putting you on the spot with this, but does that go far enough, or should there be a bigger permanent presence by the Royal Navy here in Gibraltar in order to ensure and defend the sovereignty, the British sovereignty of those waters?
Well, the first thing, on the sovereignty patrols themselves, I think when we have destroyers and frigates here, or even larger ships like HMS Bulwark, they get a lot of personal satisfaction from steaming their warships, flying the White Ensign, flying their helicopters if they're available through these waters to demonstrate that the waters are British. And I'm proud of the success of that particular subtle change to our mission and actually declaring we're doing it and giving the people of Gibraltar that reassurance. Do we need larger vessels here? I think we have to balance that. These are very congested, very busy waters, and frankly, if you were to have a frigate or a destroyer right up in the bay, in amongst all the bunkering ships, I'm not sure it would serve a useful purpose. And I think, although the patrol boats are very small, they're pretty nippy and they can get to the situations quickly. And not forgetting, of course, that the main protagonist is the Guardia Civil operating similar sized vessels at very high speed. So my personal professional view is I'm not sure what value added there is by larger ships being in this area. And that's not to say that the sovereignty patrols should reassure the good people of Gibraltar that the Royal Navy does take this job very seriously.
Well, of course, you'll soon be leaving behind some of the challenges you've got over here, like the dispute with Unite and the Spanish incursions, but you're on to new challenges in Scotland in your new job. Can you tell us what that entails?
Yeah, I'm going to be the flag officer Scotland, Northern England and Northern Ireland, which is a job title getting longer and longer because I also have responsibility for naval reserves, some of which serve out with the Gibraltar Squadron already, so getting to meet them and talk to them is a useful precursor to my next job. And I basically look after everything that goes on in the Royal Navy above the waterline, so everything on the land, so our naval regional engagement, the recruiting that we do, and with particular responsibility for representing the Royal Navy in Scotland. And so I'll be, the only admiral north of Watford because of where the Navy bases itself down on the south coast. So it's a huge responsibility and something I'm really looking forward to.
I know that you improved your golf handicap during your time here in Gibraltar. I suppose that in Scotland you'll have an opportunity to improve that further still.
Well, I think I've had a great time here, and one of my own personal goals, because I think I think it's unhealthy to work every hour that God sends you, and you do need to find an escape. And I found escaping to the golf course has been a good way to do that. So I've had a great time. We've got a really strong combined services golf society here, which has been a privilege to be part of. So I have made progress, and of course Scotland is the home of golf. So I'm not sure the first Sea Lord was thinking about that when he appointed me there, but I'd like to thank him.
Okay, and very finally, what's the memory, the abiding memory, if you like, that you take back with you from Gibraltar, and will you continue to look out for what goes on here?
You can't help, if you've been here for any length of time, you can't help Gibraltar gets under your skin. And I think with all the modern communications and so on, you know, I've become a bit of a Twitter addict, and I don't think I'll be dropping anyone, including yourself, from the Gibraltar feeds. And so you can't help taking interest in and I want to see the progress that we've started continue. I'd like to see our projects to rationalise the estate completed, and I'll be looking forward to being able to watch that from 1,500 miles away. But in terms of what's been the highlights, there's been so many. I think it's incredibly important that we get our ceremonial responsibilities right, and I think felt extremely proud to be part of 2 Queen's birthday parades. But also there's the operational side, which is probably less in the public eye than those events. But things like, you know, we've handled 12 or 13 submarine visits this year, and that's the first time for 5 years we've had that drumbeat, and that's complex, difficult, and the great team here, be they locally employed, be they Royal Navy, Army or Air Force, have done a terrific job in supporting Gibraltar as it moves into this role as a forward mounting base. And in fact, only this week we've had an exercise for well over 100 personnel from the Joint Force Logistics Command. Lots of different things, lots of challenges, but some very happy memories, and I've been very proud to have the privilege of being the commander here.